What's up, everybody? So it's Jason with Nerf Herder Radio. I'll be doing the show solo tonight. Carter, can't talk. Carter's out of town. Do have some stuff we want to talk about tonight. I know Apple had their big announcement this week. We'll get into that. I had some information around the Eternals we've talked about, what you could follow up with, hoping Carter to fill in on his piece of it. His favorite director of Star Wars, Rian Johnson, has some news around what he's doing. Have some gaming news, and then I want to try to do a little bit of a video game review of a game I've been playing here recently. So we'll kind of jump right into this. Apple just announced, this week they've got their big, launch of their new iPhone 11 that came out. They had a bunch of different stuff that came out between the iPhone 11, the 11 Pro, the 11 Max, Apple Watch. They also had a new iPad announced, a newer, lower cost one. Some updates to their OS and some services. What I'm really interested in out of all of these things is the Apple streaming service, if it's going to be any kind of stand-up or threat or impact into the market around like Netflix, especially with Disney Plus. Curious how that's going to turn out. But digging into the iPhone a little bit, they added a new lens to it. They updated the chipset on it. The 11 itself is just kind of their entry model. It's a 6.1-inch display. Nothing's really crazy here that's exciting to me. They've got two cameras on it. One's a wide angle and an ultra wide angle camera, so 120 degree view that you can take pictures of. So, from a personal standpoint with family and stuff, I could see some usage in it, but nothing really compelling me to move into this this new device. I've got an X already, so not too excited there. They do have also the 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max, so triple lens, so more camera lenses for us if you follow any of that. So just better picture quality from what I've been seeing and reading up around. The new chip is supposed to be 20% faster with GPU and CPU, so faster phone always. But to me, since I don't know, for a while, I think the Apple devices from the phone standpoint haven't had anything revolutionary, and I know I've got some friends that are Apple fanatics and stuff, and they'll think otherwise. But Apple has a great ecosystem when it comes to messaging and their app store and making sure they don't have to worry about malware as much. It's pretty locked down. But to me, I think fortunately after the passing of Steve Jobs, the innovation kind of dwindled there a little bit. We've seen some crazy stuff with Samsung. They made foldable phones and whatnot, and those kind of flopped out, and they're working on some new models there. But nothing I've really seen, significant to me there. But the new iPad, to me, I'm kind of excited about, mainly because I'm in the market for an iPad. I don't need anything crazy. They've got a low cost one that's going to have Retina display on it. It's 10-inch. It'll support Apple Pencil, Smart Connector, and for Smart Keyboard and things like that. So I think that's pretty cool to me. They range anywhere starting price of $329 and up. So maybe something I might be looking into. I've got an iPad Air 2, works great, but with kids they want to use those things. So I think there's a play in the market there for a low cost tablet that's just simple and functional. Lastly, they announced the new watch. Nothing really exciting to me. It's kind of one of these things like reading over some of this stuff. I didn't even know the announcement happened today. I had a friend tell me about it, and we were just reading over it and talking about it over text. Just nothing exciting to me. The iOS 13 that they're going to launch, I was actually excited about that because they're introducing, from what I've heard and read, about a dark mode. So your screen can just get darker. It's easier on your eyes. As you can probably see as I click on my other monitor, there's just giant white light shining in my face, which is really, really distracting at times. But part of it. So, cool stuff, I guess. If you're excited, if you've got, I've got a friend. He's got an iPhone 7 at church. He's ready for an upgrade, so it makes sense for him. But as a lot of the data I've read and stuff, that people are keeping their phones longer. They're not really compelled to upgrade as often, just because I think that the software and the hardware aren't advancing enough to create these compelling reasons why to upgrade, which is unfortunate. But to me, I think the cell phone industry went through that for several years back. You had just the old Nokia phones, and then we got into crazy phone ideas and concepts. Things got weird, if you will. There's a Nokia phone that looked like a regular brick, and it folded open and had a keyboard on it. And then you had the Palm Trios with the touch screens and Windows Mobile, that was a big thing, and then Android came onto the market, Apple came onto the market, and that's kind of where we're at now. So I'm curious what the next big leap is. Is it going to be wearables with glasses? Lots of speculation around that long term, what it looks like, but that's kind of really it from there. So that's kind of my take on the Apple story. Moving into some Star Wars news, Rian Johnson, kind of came out and was talking about his next trilogy with Star Wars. And there wasn't too much that he really came out with it. He was, what he said, I'm where I can't say anything about it. In the process, it's a process. It's a process. So obviously he's in a process with this movie or his trilogy. So lots of moving parts, he says. Apparently, Benioff and Weiss's, Star Wars entry is going to arrive in theaters supposedly around 2022 before his, which is expected in 2024. So I'm very curious to see what that's going to look like from what the story is going to look like, because it's going to be a completely different part of the galaxy, new characters. As we all have seen and read, if you follow any of the Star Wars news, with Rise of Skywalker, it's the end of the Skywalker legacy. So we'll no longer have Luke and that family era going on. It'll be a new generation, a new story, a new character. How that ties in with the rest of the universe, what and when, I don't know. There's been a lot of talks that they should do a Knights of the Old Republic based off of the early years. So before the Empire, before the the Senate and even Episode 1, there was this older time of Star Wars, and I kind of want to see that. I'd love to see something original, but it just comes back down to what they want to do, and they got to make it successful. They got to have the right writers and stuff in the cast behind it. So I don't think with Benioff and Weiss, who've done Game of Thrones and the success they had there with directing that, obviously there is a huge impact the writers had on them that drove a lot of that success too. So it's not to discredit that it's all on their shoulders, but the directors obviously have an important play there. Last week, let's talk about last week. Last week, I had some family illnesses, so we didn't stream, unfortunately. And then we went to stream on Thursday to do the Midlife Crisis matinee. Apparently, Mixer said, hey, you've got to update your terms and conditions or we're shutting you down. And they sent this to our Nerf Herder email address that I don't ever check. And so when we went to stream, we couldn't stream, so we had to re-agree to terms and conditions. That's why we're back tonight. So, but that being said, week before last, we talked about the Eternals a lot with Marvel, and they're kind of this quiet group of characters. I'm never really familiar with them, but some background on the Eternals from Marvel that we're going to see a movie of coming up here soon, and I forget all the cast that's lined up. You've got the guy that played Robb Stark, Selma Hayek, Angelina Jolie, Kumail Nanjiani. It's a pretty big cast, so which is, as Carter said when he was on, makes him nervous, and it does me too. But I think it could be successful. Hopefully, it doesn't fall into another Inhumans saga like that did with that TV series. But some background on the Eternals themselves is they were engineered by the Celestials, and the Celestials within the Marvel Universe were referred to as space gods. So they were these deities, if you will, out there. And thousands of years ago, they experimented with the DNA of primitive humans, and the results were two offshoots of the human race. You have the Eternals and the Deviants. And the Deviants basically looked more like mutants and monsters like you kind of see in the X-Men. So they were kind of not welcomed into the norm, into society as much. And so they were kind of, shunned. But whereas the Eternals were able to pass off as humans more. But there were some some of them that also had to go into hiding and stuff, it says as well. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And they became later in the universe of Marvel immortal characters. So how they all fit into all this, I don't know. I don't know anything else other about it. I just thought it was interesting to give a little more backstory on the Eternals because I'm not familiar with it. And as that's something Marvel's going to start to market and release, I thought that would be important to share with you guys. So moving on from the Eternals, going into some gaming news, my brother shared this with me as well. Nintendo has announced on the Switch Online service they are going to start having Super Nintendo games added into their Switch Online. And I think it's like $12 a month or $20 a month for the service. I can't remember entirely what that is exactly. Let me pull it up real quick and I can tell you guys as we wait for the power of the internet over here. Yep. So Switch Online, obviously they've got a bunch of the old school Nintendo games that anybody grew up in the '80s with. So you had Zelda, Dr. Mario, Yoshi, Super Mario Brothers 3. But they added Super NES games to the lineup as well, and some of these I'm excited about. Super Metroid, that was a good one. So if you've ever played any of the Metroid games or Castlevania games, also referred to as Metroidvania, just because that's kind of how those games were. You run around, you power up your characters, you're locked off to certain areas until you get certain abilities, and then you can break into certain areas and gain extra power ups or energy or health or whatever else. Really, really cool. Kind of goes into what my game review is going to be here in a little bit. But you had Super Mario World, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, Star Fox, great game. Pilot Wings was a fun game. I know the guys on IGN GameScoop were kind of dogging it a little bit. I enjoyed that game more than anything. I don't know why. You jump out of planes, you hang glide, you fly a plane, you do some other stuff. You have to jump through rings. It was just kind of really cool, and I think it was just one of those games that it was just so different to play at the time when the Super Nintendo came out. I grew up playing this one a lot. F-Zero, so you have an awesome racing game. A Link to the Past launch title for the Super Nintendo, so if you're Zelda fan, that's a great one to go play. Breath of Fire is really cool. I was a fan of that one. Probably played more of Breath of Fire 2 and Breath of Fire 3 when they later came out. But really, really great offering from Nintendo. It's pretty cool. So the Switch Online's got a ton of NES titles, to share with. And from a cost standpoint, if I remember correctly, Bryson's in plans. Let's look at this. And I made my internet mad. There we go. So 12 months. If you pay for a family membership for 12 months, it's $34 for one person. For one account, it's $20 a year for the year. And so that lets you play some of the games online, like Smash Brothers and other online games they might have. But you get that whole back catalog as well. We just kind of talked about, and there's a ton of games there. I think it's about probably 30 or 40 classic titles that you can play. Having a Switch for a while, I enjoyed it a lot, and I think it's really cool. Just not the game mechanics for me, if you will. Smaller screen. My kids like playing on it a little bit, so they played Fortnite and stuff. So I like that you have modern games and kind of these retro games, and it's kind of interesting because I feel like we're at this point within gaming where you have the AAA titles that are going to come out. Gears 5 just launched. Call of Duty's coming out. Tons of other stuff. Destiny's got a new update coming out. But at the same time, indie developers and even the main developers are really embracing this backwards compatibility and bringing back some of the older catalog into the environment in the market, if you will. And I'm kind of curious why. Is it because of nostalgia purposes, which I think, but I also think there's a play here to introduce a generation to what gaming might have been like in the earlier years too, which is really cool. I've got a friend who does arcade restoration. I'd love to try to get him on the podcast one week and him talk about the arcade era of stuff and pinball and whatnot. So, but yeah, the Switch membership's really cool. If you have a Switch, I definitely think that's something anybody could take advantage of and enjoy. So, moving on, Stadia had some announcements as well with Google. This is their streaming service. Not really follow them too much. I'm not going to be one that's going to play the streaming scenario with Google. I'm not a big fan of their portfolio, if you will, for a lot of different reasons. But they're going to try to support cross-J and cross-play and cross-progression with their games, which I think is cool. Streaming games as a service, I'm just curious how this is really going to work out once it actually launches with them. Is it going to be a big disruptor or is it not? I think it's a great way for Google to introduce themselves into the gaming market and not have a lot of hardware investment behind it, if you will, from a what the device requires, because it's a controller and a Chromecast, and that's really it. Microsoft's doing some things as well we've talked about before in the past, so I'm really curious where that's going to fit in the market. But I'm a big PC gamer now. I've got an Xbox, but I really play on the PC, and one of the things I'm going to talk about here in a minute is Game Pass with Microsoft. I think it's really cool, and there's also another one as well that I've been paying for. But kind of moving into those subscription services, something that I have used in the past and probably have beaten like a dead horse before is Loot Crate. Wanted to talk about these guys a little bit just because subscribed to them several months back. Boxes kept getting delayed. It was very disappointing, very frustrating. and ended up really just moving into canceling my subscription. One, never heard back from anybody. I was owed a total. Paid for 4 boxes, only got 2 so far, so I think I'm owed 2 more still. And the customer service was very much a letdown. I told my brother about it just because I got another box. I'm giving him something. And Brandon, he's been on the show before, and he thought that they were gone out of business. But they'd actually filed for Chapter 11, and turned out that they were having some financial issues. And I can probably attest to that, because you could go on, if you use one of the tips we've recommended before within your browser, if you have the Honey app installed, when you go to check out on Loot Crate, it'll scan and put in the best coupon code to save you money. Well, they had like a 60% off coupon code you could do. So I could pay for a month, get 60% off, cancel a subscription, and start another one back up, get another 60% off every time. So somewhere in the mix with Loot Crate, I feel like their upper management just was not managing things very well, whether it be from an inventory and cost, pricing, whatever it might be. And so I've gotten a couple more crates. Something kind of cool I got here, and just to show you guys, is it's a key ring, but it's the brain chip from the Terminator. I thought that was kind of cool. Got some Legend of Zelda stuff, some comic books that were like the League of Regrettable Superheroes and Supervillains, kind of funny comics to read about the history of comic book characters that were kind of duds and flops, but how they carved the way into stuff. Got a shirt, some other cool stuff as well. So I think it's really cool. Hopefully they kind of get their act together, and it's something that maybe I can subscribe to again at a later date. But right now I'm just want to get what I've paid for and kind of wait and see where it steers out. But if you liked kind of getting that kind of geeky, nerdy swag, it's a really cool thing. It's kind of exciting to get, you get it on a monthly basis. It could be shirts, it could be pins, it could be my brother, he's getting a Dungeons and Dragons dice rolling castle. I thought that was kind of neat. I've gotten Ghostbuster stuff out of it. I got a t-shirt this past time. So there's some cool stuff there. Hopefully they get their act together, though, and it's something that I can start to subscribe to again. So really moving on with the time we have left, I want to take this time to share with you guys about a video game I've been playing. And part of this has been on Game Pass. So Microsoft announced at E3 Xbox Game Pass, and really, really cool. Let me get that out of the screen. Sorry about that. Really cool service you basically pay for. I think it's like $4 a month, and you get around, I think, 100 titles right now added to the mix, if you will. Sorry. Hey, Jaden, thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm kind of bummed about Loot Crate, but they filed for Chapter 11. They're going to try to continue in business, so we'll cross our fingers and see what happens. Hopefully they make it through there and kind of get their act together, and let's see. Oh, you got Game Pass. That's awesome, dude. You got Game Pass for 3 years, so I'm paying for it monthly, but I'm enjoying it so far. I'm going to try to start reviewing some of these games more. I have played the one I'm going to play here in a second and kind of show you guys is Guacamelee 2. Played the first one, and it follows the story of a luchador. He gets a special mask, and he's trying to save himself. It's made by Drinkbox Studios, obviously. I personally really enjoy the game. It's a little cheesy in some of the gameplay, and we'll start my game back up here in a second, but I actually enjoyed this game. Hello, that is loud in my ears. I'm not sure what it's like for you guys, but I've really enjoyed this game a lot. Very unique. It follows that Metroidvania, Castlevania style game a whole lot, but it is kind of hard. So I've kind of gotten to this point now towards the end of the game, and you jump around. You basically lose all these, get all these different wrestling moves. So you punch, kick, jump, you can uppercut. I can do a frog slam, as they call it, uppercut. There's a dash. You gain different things throughout the game. So I can do one where I can run up walls, as you just saw. Let me try to do another one. There we go. There we go. Now I killed myself. Whatever. So, really cool game, though. I enjoy it if you want something that's got a little bit of a challenge to it. It is really Metroidvania. You're definitely right, Jaden. There's no denying that. So, but you travel between dimensions. There's the dark dimension and the life dimension, if you will. And anyway, I'm at a harder point in the game, so let me back up and we'll kind of see if I can get to show off y'all a little better. But really enjoy it. It's got a good challenge to it. It's fun. It's interesting. I've enjoyed the investment I've made into the game. And we'll see what we can do here. See if we can not die. I died. Yeah, I forgot. That's a hot lava floor. So, fun game though. I would definitely recommend this to anybody who's kind of wanting to get into gaming, and they're just not sure about it. They're not sure what makes sense for them to play really. This looks like another death trap, so I'm not too excited. Oh my gosh. I died. So, yeah. Fun game though. Got a great story. So essentially the story in the first game is the love interest of you gets captured by this guy who's from the undead world, and you have to go stop him from destroying the world and ruining the Mexiverse, as they call it. Ending that game, you save the world, obviously, and in this game, you become the luchador again, and unfortunately, though, in a different universe, kind of doing the whole Marvel game, you end up at a point where you can no longer, you have to go into a different universe and save the world from a different villain because your guy died. And so that really kind of becomes the game in a nutshell. So it was fun. I enjoy it. I'm going to try to beat it, actually. It's one of those games I'm determined to, but the levels have just got insanely hard all of a sudden, which I think it's interesting because I'm playing through the game for several hours, and it's piece of cake walkthrough. It's just kind of a grind, and got to this point there now where it's just like it is X Games factor to try to survive. So we'll see what happens with it. I would definitely recommend this game to anybody who's out there. And, guys, really, that's all I've got tonight. We'll be back on Thursday with the Midlife Crisis matinee. Carter should be back in town with us. I'm pretty excited about the movies we've got picked out. I think he has got Hackers, and I'm trying to get watched a movie that just came out, finished, so I can give you a good review on that. It's kind of a horror movie favorite of mine, and I have some funny stories about it as well. But as Carter's always says, may the force be with you.